Okay, so welcome back to my channel. My name is Anna, and today my video is about John Locke and memento. Let me preface this by saying two things. My first thing is that never ever in my whole life did I think I'd be the kind of person who would talk about memento. I would say the reason I thought I would never talk about memento is because I would never see it. I watched it for my philosophy class, which is philosophy of self and other. I may be writing a paper on it. That's the second thing. B2. This is gonna be like a rough draft talking point, jumping off point of the paper that is due in a week from now. John Locke, British, English, writing at the time of the English Civil War, famous for the US Constitution. I find him fascinating, but we're reading not his political philosophy, we're reading his other philosophy about what personal identity is. I don't exactly know what exactly we're reading. A real abridged version. John Locke has three things that make up the world: substances, modes, and relations. Substances are God, bodies, and finite intelligences. Which all human people have bodies. They may or may not have minds. Okay, so basically, according to John Locke, very complicated and a little bit convoluted, is that human beings have multiple identities. We have like a material identity, which changes from moment to moment, and it's never the same, and it's the stuff that our body is made out of. So every time that we add or lose particles of ourselves, or that they change, we have a new material identity. The second way is a modal biological identity, in which we're organized into human beings and we're recognizably the same human being, that we're the same human being over time. And neither of those things are our personal identity, which is what makes us a person. We have a personal identity basically when we have consciousness, but there are 9 things that tell us that we have personal identity. We are thinking, we have intelligence, we have reason, we are able to reflect, we are able to consider ourself as ourself. We are the same thinking thing through time and space. We have a sustained consciousness. We have concern for ourselves, and we are capable of law, happiness, and misery. So, in a lot of ways, certain animals could be considered top personhood. We watched 2 movies in connection with this topic. We watched Being John Malkovich, which came out in 1989, and Memento. People know about Memento. It's about a guy and he loses his memory. He has short-term working memory, but no ability to consolidate those memories and form new long-term memories. He's looking for his wife's killer by leaving notes for himself. And Being John Malkovich is about a puppeteer who in his office finds a portal that leads into John Malkovich's brain. You're like in John, you are John. You're not just in John Malkovich, you are John Malkovich. So like these different consciousness enter and become John Malkovich. While the human is John Malkovich, the person is whoever is in his body. I would say the complication comes because people keep wanting to say that only one consciousness exists in a time and place, but this isn't, I don't think that this is true. John Malkovich, in the movie Being John Malkovich, necessarily aware that his body is being taken over by other consciousnesses, but they don't have any control over him, and he also seems to be able to be, he's still aware of his actions, and he is able to, he's aware of the world around him. So while it does a good job of exploring how consciousness is the root of our personal identity, it is not perfect. Also, it's a really creepy movie. I don't know that I would suggest watching it. There is one scene where John Malkovich enters John Malkovich, and then everybody is John Malkovich, and it's very creepy. Memento, as I've already explained, is about a man with a short-term memory problem condition in which he cannot consolidate any memories. So as long as he's holding them in his working memory, and this is pretty scientifically accurate, I think. I mean, I heard about a person who had a condition like this in one of my science classes I've taken, and then they're able to hold conversations as long as they are able to keep thoughts in the working memory, which is really our short-term memory, then they are able to function perfectly fine. But they are not able to consolidate those memories at all. So that part of his brain is intact, but the part where he is unable to create new memories and take thoughts and stimulus and process them and consolidate them to create new memories has been damaged and is irreparable. Which means he does not have a consciousness of himself, and he has a consciousness of himself, but it's not maintained over time. He would have a ruptured personhood because he does not fit some of these characteristics, especially sustained consciousness. He's unable to reflect on his actions based on the fact that he is not able to create new memories. There's something at the end of the movie that complicates this. Actually, I do suggest watching Memento. It genuinely tells the story backwards. I was suspicious that it wasn't as clever as people were making it out to be, but it is very clever, and you're never quite sure what's going on, but it's still very clear, and you aren't left with absolute answers about what has happened or who killed his wife. Leonard has a ruptured personhood because he doesn't have a sustained consciousness over time, and that's true. He doesn't. Even the ending, which I believe fully complicates the notion of the film, that there's this other man who has a very similar condition to the one he has, and it appears that he's conflated the two situations, and he's never going to be able to reflect on that because he's unable to create new memories. He's not able to create new memories, so he doesn't have a sustained consciousness over time and space. So at one point in Memento, he's running from somebody, and he thinks, what am I doing here? So in class, we were able to decide that he was not able to really have a full personhood. He probably wouldn't have complete legal rights because he's completely unable to actually make decisions. But he more or less is able to survive and be an adult person. But people are able to take advantage of him, and they do. The decision is that he's not fully a person because he cannot consolidate memories. And I find this to be not the case. I don't think that anything that my classmates or my professor was saying was technically wrong, because he doesn't fit several of the categories that John Locke puts out. He's absolutely cannot reflect in a way that's really meaningful. He's not the same thinking thing over time and space. He does not have sustained consciousness. He has no even concept of time, because each time he is distracted, it's like he just woke up from being attacked. He knows that he has a condition in which he cannot consolidate memories, but he insists again and again that he knows who he is. And in that way, he's capable of making decisions in a way that any person from moment to moment would make decisions. He more or less knows who he is. He's got a sense of himself as a person and himself as a consciousness from before the accident and before his wife died. And for me, this is really what's important, because John Locke is setting out this theory of personal identity to understand what makes a person able to enter into contracts with other persons, and that means whether they are able to be held accountable if they do enter into contracts. And one of those things that we do when we enter into society, you know, is that we promise, you know, based off of John Locke's political philosophies, that we enter into contracts to not kill each other. According to the end of the movie, and absolutely, he has killed at least 2 people, possibly 3 people. And I think the question that is being posed to us by my professor is he able to be held accountable for these actions? And my answer is yes, because he doesn't not have a sense of himself as a person. He just has a ruptured personhood. Like, it would be morally and ethically dubious to get him to sign a contract, because there's absolutely no way that he would be able to reflect on that. But he is able to decide whether or not he wants to kill someone. Like, he has enough of a sense of his person that he's able to reflect on whether or not he's going to kill someone. He wakes up every morning, and every morning he makes the same decision to find his wife's killer. And I guess on the one hand, he can't ever let it go because he's tattooed it on his body, and he can't make emotional or growth because it's as if it just happened to him. But if you have a hard and fast no killing rule, which most of us do, and most of us would still have even if we lost the ability to make new memories and we were always living like second to second, I'm saying he could be held liable, like completely culpable for the 2 murders he absolutely did commit. And it would be really tricky because he doesn't have any memory of doing it, and he'd be like, I don't think that sounds like me. I'm just trying to kill one guy. But he's been taken advantage of by people who want other people dead, but he does get his own comeuppance. For the murder of this second man, I don't think he would be able to be held culpable because he was being manipulated into killing him. But for the first and the third murder that he has allegedly committed, he would be held culpable because what he wanted was to kill his wife's killer, and presumably that's the first person he killed, and then he made a conscious choice. He decided to hunt and kill John Gamble as if he was his wife's killer, knowing that he's not going to remember. And that's a murder he absolutely would be able to be held culpable for. The problem that we run into is that for him to be able to be held, to have any moral responsibility and be treated like a person who is capable of sin or bad deeds, he needs to be a person. And if he doesn't meet these requirements of personal identity, then he's not really a person. So what I'm arguing, and what I probably will argue in my paper, thank you so much, YouTube, is that John Locke is wrong. I probably should have read a couple of scholarly articles about John Locke and memento. If you are a college student, you probably have access to these. If you are interested in this topic, let me know by leaving a comment below. I will reply to interesting comments because I like to talk about philosophy. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'm sure this was really confusing. I'm gonna probably try to get this video down to like 10 minutes because it does not need to be as long as it is. But I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next week. Bye.